Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. We all crave a certain amount of stability in our lives. We want things to work the way they are supposed to, and are invariably annoyed when they don't. We have come to expect such certainty in almost everything we do, to a degree that is almost robotic. If something in this clockwork mode of being goes awry, it sets off reactions in us that range from a mild shrug of the shoulders to utter panic. This need for stability and certainty has probably been a feature of human life since very early times. There is no reason to believe it wasn't there when we were living in caves. From the dawn of recorded history, we can see evidence of this elusive goal, almost as if it were a built-in feature of the human mind. There is nothing odd or unexpected about this. On the contrary, it makes sense from both evolutionary and psychological perspectives. If life is stable and predictable, it will work, and we will be able to function. If it isn't, we won't. Religions, the traditional systems of culture, structure, and belief, have almost invariably been built around ideas that attempt to make sense of the world. While they may not qualify as true explanations of the way things work by modern scientific standards, they did serve as secure anchors to deal with the topsy-turvy world that was filled with mysteries and uncertainties. When everyone was keenly aware of the precarious nature of life, with the ever-present possibility of plagues, earthquakes, war, and starvation, and death in one form or another was never far from the mind, it was crucial to know that one lived according to a system of beliefs and rules that could somehow put aside these fears. Knowing that the divine powers that controlled these sorts of things could be appeased was really the only reassurance available. Judaism was no exception to this. From biblical times to post-biblical rabbinic times, to the medieval period to relatively modern times, Judaism has given its believers a sense that what they do with their lives, both individually and collectively, will grant them a divinely ordained promise of stability. That this belief system works as long as it did and so effectively is all the more remarkable considering the turbulent history of the Jews and how they were frequently subject to the whims of uncertainty. But perhaps this turbulence is the reason that it works so well. The Jews, if anyone, were in need of something to provide certainty in their lives. And this is precisely what Judaism did for them. This week's Parsha is called Re'eh. That short word means see or look. It is written in the command form to tell the Israelites that they must look at something. That something is what follows in the verse. That, quote, I have placed before you today blessing and curse. The blessing is if you listen to the commandments of Hashem your God that I, meaning Moshe, am commanding you today. The curse is if you do not listen to the commandments of Hashem your God and swerve from the path that I command you today to follow after other gods that you do not know. What follows this introductory statement is basically an entire Parsha dedicated to one general theme, a unified religion. This is the first of three Parshas of Deuteronomy that comprise the middle section of the book. This section is essentially a long series of commandments that seem to have little to no connection to the earlier section, which recapped the prior historical experience of the Israelites and what it all meant, or to the final section, which deals with the ultimate destiny of the Israelites and where they should be heading. This middle section contains almost none of that. In fact, other than these introductory verses, it really is just a list of commandments, many of which are apparent repeats of commandments given in earlier books. Thus, it is a bit unclear how this middle section of the book relates to the other sections. But the answer to this question is quite evident when the general theme of the commandments is understood. The bottom line is unity. The very first group of rules concerns the centrality of a place of worship. In contrast to the practices of the nations who were already living in the land, to worship wherever they choose, the Israelites were to have only one place, that which would somehow be chosen by God as their shrine. Their primary means of worship was to be the sacrificial offerings, which could only be given on this central altar and not wherever convenient. But the ultimate goal of it all was much more lofty than simply bringing offerings. It was to, quote, go there and seek the presence of God. The next group of commandments deals with the temptations of alternate forms of worship, specifically the idolatrous practices of the surrounding nations. The prohibitions of idolatrous prophets, of those proselytizing another religion, and of the destruction of entire towns who had gone in this direction are listed here in great detail. As tempting as these alternate options of belief and practice may have been, they were absolutely untolerated. The religion would only work if everybody was on board. The rest of the Parsha enhances this theme of a unified religion. The idea of the Israelites being a chosen people is stated here. The laws of kashrut, of kosher animals, are listed in almost the same way as in the book of Leviticus. Everybody had to eat the same animals, slaughtered and prepared in the same way. Support for the functionaries of the temple and for the poor of the land, complete with laws about lending money and remission of debts, are found in this Parsha. Finally, it ends with a restating of the celebration of the 3 pilgrimage festivals, all in the central shrine described earlier in the Parsha. Unity was the goal, with everybody celebrating at the same time and in the same place. These laws and those that follow in the coming Parshas, combined with those found earlier, form the core of what was and what would become the practice of Judaism. The beliefs and the ideas that would accompany all this over the centuries would serve as the philosophical, spiritual, or mystical bases for these laws. These beliefs and ideas would eventually become of greater interest to the theologians and great thinkers of religion in the future. But it would always be the laws themselves, whether in their original biblical form or in the many rabbinic outgrowths that would spring from them, that would be the backbone upon which the religion was built. Judaism, in either its biblical or rabbinic forms, was always a religion of doing. It was never enough to believe or to think, as important as those were. Unity was achieved when everybody was doing the same thing. This, more than anything else, accounts for the great uniformity found in Judaism, despite the wide range of cultures it has been found and the massive span of time it has endured. Beliefs and ideas were left with more latitude for development, and they account for the great variety that has always been found in Judaism. There is little question that it was this unity that in turn accounted for the tremendous stability Judaism has shown in its long history. Judaism is a religion with a history going back over 3,000 years. That is a remarkably long time by anybody's standards. While it has gone through great changes over that long span, in many ways it is quite similar to the way it was in biblical times. The biblical kosher laws still apply, though they have been expanded considerably. The same goes for the rules associated with the holiday celebrations. Even the monetary laws still stem from the same original core laws of the Bible. That change had to happen was inevitable, owing to the vast changes in the societies the Jews have lived within over the millennia. But it is the stability behind all that change that is the truly unique feature of Judaism. It is difficult to know how much this religious stability contributed to alleviating the perpetual problem of uncertainty the Jews faced wherever they went in their long history. It is possible that Jews suffered just as much as anybody else from this problem, but it is also possible that they possessed a secret elixir that cured them of this curse. Religious stability has an almost miraculous ability to ride out any storm. As bad as unpredictable as things may get, it is always reassuring to know that one still has to do certain things and that there are certain fundamental ideas or beliefs that can inspire us to persevere. The storms will rage again and again, and it will frequently seem that all is lost. But the anchor that enables us to get through it all is that stability. We now live in times in which great doubt has been cast upon the former stability of religions. Judaism suffers from this as much as any other religion, perhaps even more. Many of the old beliefs are no longer as readily acceptable as they were in the past. Many of the old laws and customs just no longer seem all that relevant. Many do not mourn this state of affairs and even actively promote it. While this may seem like a long overdue inevitability, it does come with a price. When we cast off those old customs and beliefs with no more thought than tossing out old worn-out clothing, we may not realizing that we are disposing of a lifeline that has provided us with a benefit of incalculable value in the past. While we may believe that we no longer need that benefit, since we now have better sources of stability in our lives, we really do not know if this is true. Human beings have long been conditioned to trust in certain things and beliefs, and it is not so easy to simply pretend that we can change all that in the course of a few short years or decades. Social and personal stability is a quality that is very precious. Dismissing what has been the great stabilizing force in history with a wave of the hand is really just a great roll of the dice. The opening line of our Parsha may have gained a new relevance in our times. We do live in a time of great uncertainty. We literally do not know from one day to the next what will happen to us. We are unaccustomed to such uncertainty and crave its opposite. But the solution, at least in some spiritual sense, may have already been stated in the Bible. See, I have placed before you today blessing and curse. The blessing is if you listen to the commandments of Hashem your God that I am commanding you today. The curse is if you do not listen to the commandments of Hashem your God and swerve from the path I command you today to follow after gods that you do not know. There it is, right in the words, blessing and curse. Which do we want? Shabbat Shalom.